While pivot tables really are great for the budgeting and forecasting process, PowerPivot tables are even better. In fact, PowerPivot is like pivot tables on steroids. While regular pivot tables take data from flat Excel structures, PowerPivot takes pivot tables to a new dimension, to the multidimensional world in fact. XLDB has been designed to use with both types of pivot tables. I based XLDB to work off Excel tables that are stored centrally on SharePoint directories that are mapped locally on your PC. The table can be configured to have as many dimensional columns as you require, but a single fact or data column. When using XLDB for PowerPivot, we can incorporate separate tables for dimensions, and this enables us to integrate hierarchical structures into the planning model. XLDB will ignore the hierarchical structures and just consider the leaf levels. But an important feature of using PowerPivot is that we can enforce data integrity into the planning model through the use of relationships. By naming the dimensions the same name as the columns in the data table with the prefix dim, and this is an XLDB convention, XLDB treats the separate dimensions as equivalent to the columns in the data table. So let's take a look at the PowerPivot model in action. You can see that I've set up my pivot table model to have my account hierarchy on rows and my product dimension on columns. The account hierarchy is just a very simple three-level structure for demonstration purposes. But of course we can also use ragged hierarchies in PowerPivot, and XLDB will handle this just fine. I'm going to make some changes now and we'll leave this part of the video unedited and in real time. But recall that the data that I changed is writing back to SharePoint. My SharePoint directory is synced to my PC and I have XLDB mapped to the same directory. XLDB is taking my changes and writing them back to SharePoint, where anyone anywhere in the world who has access to my SharePoint site can see my changes in real time as I make them. My pivot table has become my planning interface. Now let's take a look at the data integrity features that using PowerPivot brings to XLDB. I'm going to unhide the blank rows from my pivot table, and you can see that because I've linked my dimensions, all of the accounts in the dimension are now available for me to use, not just the ones that are listed in my source data table already. So I'm going to change a cell that doesn't already have data. You can see that this will update by virtue of the fact that I've linked my source data table to my dimension tables. Now let's hide the blanks again and do a little bit of slicing and dicing on the hierarchical structures. I'm just going to choose the expenses now. And there you have it, budgeting and forecasting using pivot tables, with right back to SharePoint and XLDB. Hope you've enjoyed this, and if you like what you're seeing, please get in touch.